Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub. Get in there, but at a socially safe distance, so I don't have to smell Patrick, and I can barely even see Hamster, and he can't see me with them glasses.
I'm sure you smell great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I do.
Can we just say as well, how good does Pato look?
What's
Trim.
happening?
By the way, looks trim, doesn't he?
It does.
Cheers.
Do you happy to be back, mate?
Yeah, I love it.
I feel like you've left 1/6 of yourself at home.
Yep.
All right, let's move on, because this show this week is sponsored by Budweiser. Get in there. So a quick reminder that Kings of the Premier League has returned to Sky Sports, and the panel will be using Sky's power rankings and Budweiser's King of the Match stats to debate each month's MVP. Quick
cool.
one, may as well just get into it. Our MVPs of the month so far, Hamster?
Ooh, toss-up between Dominic Calvert-Lewin, of course, scored his second hat-trick of the season already in the Carabao Cup.
Ridiculous.
And Jamie Vardy, 3 touches, 9 goals. Work that out.
Ridiculous. Pato.
Oh, I don't know, man, because like Villa have had a really good start, haven't they? They haven't conceded a goal yet. I actually think on the Leicester front though, like James Justin deserves a shout out, like who's deputised amazingly well, and Castagna started a lot better than we thought too. Plus, I'd like to give a shout to Richarlison at Everton, because I really think that this is a season he's going to truly blow up.
Yeah.
Had a really good campaign last year, and with James feeding him and Calvert-Lewin, Everton might be a real threat.
Yeah, I'll stick with Sadio Mane. Just a classic pick. He started the season as he needs to go on. I think he's going to score a lot of goals this season. But you can click the link in the description below to see if any of us called it correctly and get involved with the show. Let's crack on though with Sunday Vibes, because the questions were sent in their hundreds this week. Moisa has the main one. What's next for Man United and Chelsea, given their start in the Premier League and how shaky they've looked? We're sacking off Chelsea. I don't care. I'm back in the pub. I'm putting it all on Manchester United. Get in there. So today we're going to do a sort of how to fix Man United, right? Because as of today, which is Thursday, I think the 1st of October.
It is. Spooky.
It is a bit scary, isn't it? Because it's certainly scary to be a Man United fan. It's all going wrong. We've still only got Van der Beek. We've still only got Van der Beek. Tellez hasn't been confirmed yet.
No.
And Sancho, Dembele, we don't know what's going on. Apologies, that might have changed by the time you're watching this. Hamster, what have you made of it all?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research last night, about midnight, so I'm not quite sure the quality of this. I will be reading from it directly because I don't really care about Manchester United.
Okay.
But we wanted to avoid talking about directors of football.
Been there, done
because,
that 100 times.
Well, they've apparently been pursuing one for a couple of years. They've had Campos. Is it a Campos?
Yeah.
From Lille.
From Lille in. They've interviewed him. Other various candidates. I've had ex-pros in. Apparently, not offered any of those the jobs. Contrary to popular belief, they were just there in an advisory capacity. But yeah, it looks like Ed Woodward, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are going to continue to pull the strings. Not pulled many strings this summer though, have they? Only spent 39 million bringing in one player, Donny van der Beek. Good value though. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to add depth. And he plugs a couple of holes. He's quite a tactically versatile player, isn't he? Only Arsenal from the traditional top 6 have spent less on 36 mil, but we think that Alwar is imminent, don't we? As well as...
Yeah, well, Tellez might be over the line by the time. I'd expect Tellez to be over the line by the time this video goes out. I think United will just end up spending the 18 million euros or whatever it is and getting it done.
But Chelsea, by comparison, who were the other team last season who were, really pursuing that top 4 position, have spent 204 million. And they've strengthened, significantly, brought in a high calibre of player. Obviously, Mendy's arrived to kind of fix that goalkeeper problem as well. So it looks like it's now down to Frank Lampard to find a system. Whereas for Ole, it's like, okay, we built up some momentum at the tail end of the season. Now give me some players to keep that momentum going, and it's not really happening. Manchester United have been complaining about how fans and pundits alike aren't really giving them the credit they're due, because the complexity, people don't understand the complexity when it comes to Manchester United bringing in players and whatnot. They've proper got the violins out, haven't they? And they're also struggling, which is becoming a big issue, struggling to move players out. So Pereira might be going to Lazio on loan. He's not the biggest problem. Pereira's only on 30k a week. You've got Chris Smalling, who might be going to Roma. He's been training alone. He's on around 70k a week. You've got Phil Jones and Rojo, who signed long-term deals between 2018 and 2019 on a combined £8 million a year. So we're led to believe that they have to move a few of these players on before they strengthen significantly. And the thing with Tellez is, Telles can sign a pre-contract agreement with United in 3 months' time.
Exactly.
So the United hierarchy aren't sure whether paying £18 million for his services now is necessarily good business. And
well, we're hoping though that Smalling will have been done by the time this video goes out as well. So that seems to have made progress over the last 24 hours.
And the Smalling to Roma angle might pay for Telles. So I suppose a little bit easier to rationalise in that regard. You've obviously been linked with Ismail Assar as well, Ousmane Dembele, Luka Jovic. Maybe let's get your thoughts on Ousmane Dembele first, because the whole Jadon Sancho thing looks like it's not going to happen. Dortmund gave you a date of the 10th of August, right, which coincided with their pre-season to get something sorted. United thought that was an arbitrary date. It wasn't an arbitrary date. They're like, listen, maybe. We gave you a date. And you've pissed around.
We'll see.
You've ruined your chances of getting him. So do you think Ousmane Dembele is a good stopgap?
I don't know. I really don't know. Of the other names we're linked with in the right-wing role, I think he's the best of the rest, especially if we can get him on loan. I think that's probably the best option United are going to get. There's still part of me, again, I say this right now, we're shooting this on a Thursday, there's still part of me thinks we're going to get Jadon Sancho. Do I believe that he hasn't travelled to the Bayern Munich game because of this illness? I think that might be a little bit of a pressure play, just in my head anyway. So with Dembele, I think he's the best option of the rest of them. Not the keenest on a permanent deal, because I think if United get him on a permanent deal, let's say 50 to 60, I think that probably means the end of a Jadon Sancho pursuit. Yeah. If we're going to get him on loan for 12 months, I'm not really sure why Barcelona would help us out in that regard, other than getting his wages off the books. Then I think fair enough, because he is the best of the rest and will have an impact, and that's a massive gaping hole in this Manchester United team, that right wing. So I'm fine with it. People will point to his injury record, but he's not going to have to play every game.
52 La Liga games in 3 years, and he's only played 20 minutes this season. So, like,
there's obvious holes, but if you're getting him on loan, not too asked about his injury record, in my opinion, because if it all collapses and he's injured for 4 months, then you just send him back. You've not lost anything.
Radamel Falcao 2.0.
You've effectively not lost anything. Maybe a couple of million in a loan fee. But I don't really see any negatives in getting him on loan, other than it means we're not going to get Jadon Sancho this year, which obviously all Manchester United fans want. But it's fine. That's a fine deal, and I think it'll probably be him or Jadon. The rumours about Douglas Costa, that might end up happening if we can't get Ousmane on loan, but I would be really surprised to see Ismail Assar come to United. I was
going to say, you have in a WhatsApp group kind of turned your nose up at Ismail Assar. 5 goals in the Premier League last season.
No.
Pretty good dribbler. I think only Rashford and Pogba completed more dribbles per night. You don't think he'd offer anything to United, even on a rotation option down that right-hand side for 40 mil?
Not for £40 million. I'd be really, really shocked at that. I think that's a massive...
But is it because you can't get the fact he's a Watford player who's just been relegated out of your head?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, statistically, we talk about him, he's really strong, but when I watch him, I just think he had 5 good games in that entire
He's
season.
still quite raw. Yeah,
he's very raw.
But I mean, he's going to be an excellent player. I think he's already a very useful player.
I feel like he's like a West Ham player. He'd step up and play for West Ham.
I think he's better than that level. He could definitely go to a Wolves or something and be very good. He could go to an Arsenal and be very good. I think he's better than Pepe, but or certainly his last season was better than Pepe.
Well, that's a big statement.
Right, who had 6 minutes for Pat's first hot take?
Clip that. Goodness gracious.
I've just got to continue the Pepe slander. It's the second biggest waste of money after Kepa. But yeah, he in a way he feels like the sort of luxury Dan James, which is runs really fast. He's much more skillful than Dan James.
And is he going to start 30 games?
James, I'm not even sure. James is like a lower Premier League player.
I feel sorry for James.
Ismail Assar is not.
He should go to Leeds. He should have gone to Leeds. He should snap the hand off at the second chance.
He needs a loan move, but it's never going to happen now because United don't have the depth. But what about you, Pat? Where do you think Ousmane Dembele is the best Jadon Sancho backup / if that doesn't happen?
If he's fit, he's still one of the best young players in the world, and he can play on both sides, and he gives you some creativity in the front line, whereas at the moment all your creativity comes from midfield, so I think that's good. So I think it would probably be a sensible move, especially if you got him on a loan with a buy option. If it was a matter of just buying him, I agree with you, that means no Sancho, and I think that Sancho is actually the smart bet for Man United. There are other issues in their squad, but if you were just going to go out and buy one player to kind of fix United, it would be Sancho.
I also think Sancho's less of a risk at 120 than Ousmane Dembele at 65, just because of their fitness records.
Well, it depends, right? If you were to loan him and then and you had an obligation to buy him next year, and you could get him fit this season, then it would be less of a worry. Or if you had, okay, we will have that obligation to buy if he plays more than 25 league games or something, to give you a little bit of security. But yeah, plus he's homegrown. He's homegrown, he's younger. Like, there are lots of things that Sancho offers that Dembele, over the last couple of years, we've become a little bit more leery of. But
it's just extremely odd that United would offer 95 for Jadon Sancho, bulk at 120. They obviously thought it was going to come down because of COVID, and Dortmund have stood firm, right?
Yeah.
But then willingly pay 65 plus wages for Ousmane Dembele, who's
I don't
paid
think United
20
get
minutes.
taken on a permanent.
I think they'll just let it.
Never going to happen.
But also then you look at that a little bit and you think, why are you offering 90 for Jadon Sancho, which was never going to happen, having spent 45 or whatever it is on Donny van de Beek? Like, it would have been much better. You clearly had that money that you could have just added to your Sancho bid and just paid what it took to get Sancho. Sancho is, after Mbappe, the best young player in the world. You're going to have to pay a premium to get him, and United should have just done that, because yes, Donny van de Beek's a good player, but he's not really in a position of need. Like, he's not a defensive midfielder. He's not really a box-to-box midfielder. Like, he's a guy who's really good at running off the ball into the final third, and I think that's good for United to have. But it's kind of a luxury given the setup of their midfield currently. So I didn't quite understand that.
So would you have just paid the money early doors and just gone, but before the August the 10th deadline, if that ever existed?
Yes.
And just said, here's the 108, let's move on.
Yeah, because you get him and that's done forever. Like, you get Jadon Sancho and you figure the rest out. Like, United were good enough last season to make top 4. We'll see how the defences come a bit troubled after these first few games of the season. But you add Sancho to your side and you've then got a front line of Martial, Rashford and Sancho, which is going to be a lead, and Greenwood coming through. Like, I think that's an amazing front line. Failing that, I think that you might have to try and figure out like a 3-5-2 or something. Like, if you don't get that wide player, because I think your fullbacks are quite weak, and it's kind of the only way that I could see you getting players in their natural positions. Yeah,
I think the issue for Manchester United with the 3-5-2 is going to remain that Wan-Bissaka can't play as a wing back because he's just not.
No, I think you play Wan-Bissaka maybe as the right centre half, because he's over 6 foot, and then that maybe covers the fact that, like, Telles, I think is
bad in the air though.
If you get, I'm assuming you get Telles.
Yeah.
That he was last season, but he wasn't the season before. And so I think if you got Telles then on the left wing back, you wouldn't worry so much if you had, say, Fosu Mensah playing right wing back if he had Wan-Bissaka behind him.
So our first how to fix area is really just get Jadon.
Yeah, definitely.
The most obvious one. Let's just move on.
And we said we weren't going to get fixated on Jadon, but it's really hard not to gravitate towards him because it is just the obvious candidate. What I want to say to you is, obviously, Manchester United has come under a lot of fire for Manchester United transfer dealings, and at one point it kind of looked like United had like won COVID, because it was like the time to act ethically as a club. Manchester United did lots of good things in that period, fan outreach, didn't furlough people like other big Premier League clubs at least tried to, signed Van der Beek, which brought him a little bit of goodwill, but like since then Gary Neville has said like Manchester United's dealings have been appalling. This is the easiest window in Premier League history to own. But do you think Manchester United were trying to act a little bit more ethically, and then their counterparts like stole in on them? Like Tottenham have borrowed 175 million from the bank of whatever, and then used that to kind of foot transfers. I feel like United were thinking about being conservative, and then they've been caught a little bit cold in that regard.
I don't think they expected other teams to do as much business as they have. I agree with you. And there are arguments, look, people will batter the board and Ed Woodward and the Glazers and Ollie, whoever's involved in those transfer dealings, be it Matt Judge or Ed Woodward. But there are explanations and reasons that you can rightly point to. Manchester United losing more money than any other club during COVID in the Premier League.
It's because they make more, right?
Because they make more effectively.
Yeah, they're not, that's not actually true, right?
Well, in terms of like...
They're missing out on
they're missing out on that money.
But proportionally, the London clubs are missing out on more, right? Because Arsenal are more reliant on matchday revenue than any club in the league, and I think Spurs are going that way as well because their fees are so high, whereas United still have like... endless, like their tractor dealers in like China or whatever. Like but they do have sources of revenue.
Like that amount of money missed. That's what they're effectively pointing to, isn't it? Like £5 million every time United don't have fans in Old Trafford.
It's a difficult angle to work. What I'm trying to do is kind of bring a sense of balance, I guess. In the,
but no, I agree with Gary. I really agree with Gary.
Do they deserve any leeway? But then
no, they don't.
And you look at the Glazers. The Glazers are going to cost Manchester United more than COVID is ever going to, right? They've taken like 1.5 billion out of the club in 15 years. Like, you'll ride this storm for a year, 2 years, but then your bottom line is still going to be really healthy.
It's a very consistent pattern. It's a very, very consistent pattern with Manchester United, their managers, and the transfer dealings. Even pre-COVID, it's struggle, sign players, the next season after that get top 4, get into the Champions League, sign no one. Struggle, sign players, get into the Champions League, sign no one. It's a very consistent pattern. It's been that way. If you go back to like Jose era, when his first season, or second season I think it was, when he got that group of players through the door that's quite strong, and the second season,
although he did want Boateng, I feel like Woodward told him no, right, to signing Jerome Boateng from Bayern Munich, and I feel like Bayern Munich. And you've got a head of global scouting.
But Ollie's not asking for Boateng. He's asking for, like Pato said, the best young player in world football, effectively, who was getting.
Yeah, he fits the profile.
But this is the rare situation where like the Man United signing and the sensible signing line up. Like, the problem that you've had in recent years is, you say like, oh well, we go and sign players and then get into the top 4, but often those players are signed with a real short-term eye, and that is where the lack of a director of football really hurts you. Because we can look at players for Man United more than almost any other club and say that guy's not a Man United signing. And the thing is, some of those players would develop into Man United players. Like, there are centre backs out there who you can get for 20 to 30 mil who would definitely help Man United grow into a really, really good side. But because they tend to go and get guys who are already peak, then by the time they're back in the Champions League, those guys are post-peak. You can't really sell them. You've got a squad full of ageing players on huge contracts.
But you can
they're always prestige signings. But
Ollie has a decent track record. Right. His first summer was decent. His January window was decent.
Yeah,
he hasn't made too many errors. Maybe you can point to Dan James being not the player they thought he was going to be, and it didn't quite work out. But you'd say Maguire gets battered, was a relative success, if an overpayment. It's not his fault.
But that's my issue. But that's my issue, that it was an overpayment. Like, I think I've got no issue with Maguire signing in terms of his output on the pitch, but I think that for that amount of money, you could have bought a defensive midfielder and a centre back, and probably not have been, and probably have been maybe even slightly better. But my issue is not with Solskjaer there. My issue is with the fact that there's no overarching plan, because when you look at the money Man United have spent over the last 10 years, have they spent enough to be a top quality side? Yes, definitely.
But that's the sporting director.
And like, when you see like Diogo Jota be available for like 45 mil, that is the sort of thing. That's the reason that I'm so harsh on signings like the Pepe signing, and that is the reason as well I can understand not paying 40 for Ismaila Sarr, because you say Jota is 45 million pounds. Like, that is a signing Man United could make, who would be phenomenal for them.
Yeah, they've spent $1 billion since 2013.
Awful.
And like the new information I learned at home that like we want to not drill into Team FD, but like the dynamic at Manchester United, I found it made a little bit more sense as to why they hadn't pursued the director of football when I sort of looked into it. They have
Matt Judge, Ed Woodward.
They had a head of global scouting, which is Marcel Bout, I believe his name is. I've sort of lost it on the page here. Marcel Bout, head of global scouting. Ollie runs the ship a little bit like Fergie in that he sort of hands off the day-to-day coaching to other people and does the bigger picture thinking, right? Which is why we always see Ollie at various games, like he's doing scouting firsthand. You've already mentioned Matt Judge is head of commercial something or other, and Ed Woodward's the vice chairman, right?
Yeah, but Matt Judge effectively leads our transfer.
Yeah, so there's like a senior leadership team who've kind of shared responsibilities and clear lines of division, let's say. Apparently Ed Woodward does still struggle to relinquish power, does take on too much, but there's like enough heads there to be able to identify talent. So that's why they didn't hire Campos or Antero Henrique, who was at Monaco, right, and signed Mbappe. I think he was interviewed for it as well, and Paul Mitchell,
who's now at Monaco.
So like when people say, "Oh man, just go and get a sporting director," and that'll resolve the issue, it's like there's already enough senior heads doing what a sporting director would do. I think whether they're exceptional at their job or not is a different question. But like, I suppose another question is like, is Ollie a sufficiently good enough coach to turn very good players into title-winning players? But
it's a difficult question to answer with Ollie, really isn't it? Because I think we would all have said last season that if Pochettino's available, at some stage we probably said, look, you get Pochettino. But having said that,
literally that's all we said all last season.
But having said that, you can't take away from the fact that Ollie has noticeably improved this team. He was towards the back end of last season in an unsackable position. I think we were on a 21-game win streak. He'd noticeably improved, I'd say, Rashford, Martial, Greenwood. I think Scott McTominay definitely improved. Bruno Fernandes was an exceptional signing and got better and better under him.
I think some of those you're getting credit just for the fact that like you're there while they turn 20, 22, 23. Yeah. So like Rashford I think would have developed like regardless of who was there in a way,
but
because
Martial,
he was hitting that age.
But then Martial I don't think would have. Martial was fully coasting under some of his previous managers and for the national team, and I think
his
really
management definitely deserves praise. Like the players clearly like him, which wasn't the case, which was a massive turnaround from Jose. But I'm a little bit more unforgiving of his record. And I just think that you take the games against Brighton into consideration, and yes, small sample size, a little bit of tunnel vision here because we're not very far into the season, and Manchester United are weeks behind other teams in terms of their preparation. But I watched them play against Brighton, two different sides, in the Carabao Cup and the Premier League, and they have a much more coherent system. They're playing better football than Manchester United, and I just had the kind of stark realisation that Man United, I feel like their sense of play, their style of play, not really much clearer than it was a year ago. And we were saying this kind of 6, 8, 12 months into Ollie's tenure as well. And I just feel to be like comprehensively outplayed by a team of that calibre. That's not to disrespect Brighton, a team that kind of should be finishing mid-table.
Yeah.
I thought just early alarm bells. I don't know if I'm being an alarmist here.
After the Palace loss at home as well, which was like a deserved loss.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of caveats though. I do think towards the United start to the season, I really do think that fitness and stuff like that is playing a big problem with Manchester United right now. Yeah. Because I don't want to keep bringing back towards the end of last season, but towards the end of last season, we did have a very coherent system, a very clear 4-2-3-1 that we were playing, and it was getting the best out of Bruno, was getting the best out of Martial.
Was it not just Bruno stitching it together though?
And also lots of pens.
I suppose Matic played
Matic was playing much better.
I just feel like Potter's a better manager than Solskjaer and Lampard.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, but this is the thing, right, about Ollie. You're never going to win the league with Ollie. For you to win the league with Ollie, you would have to have a significant talent advantage in all the clubs around you, I think.
Yeah.
And you're never going to. You're never going to have a better squad than City or Liverpool.
Than just that at the moment, don't they?
Agreed.
Ollie is smoothing over a lot of issues.
Agreed. But then, your recruitment needs to be better then. And it just still feels like this summer they looked at the squad and they were like, "Nah, we won't get a defensive midfielder."
So what areas would you have improved? What areas would you have looked to improve if you were in that director of football role and you were fixing United? What are the main areas you'd have?
I'd have got a left back, a centre back,
right,
a defensive midfielder, and a right winger.
Okay, so Sancho. Are we saying Telles is the left back?
I'd have gone for Reguilon because I know that I know there was an issue with the buyback or whatever, but the buyback means that if Real Madrid exercise that, which they probably won't because they've got Mendy, if they end up exercising that, then that will cover the amount you paid for him plus his wages while he was there.
Yeah.
Which means you essentially got 2 years of Reguilon for free, which I think is fine.
And he's also got to want to return to Madrid as well in that
exactly.
equation.
And if he's starting for Man United, I believe that you can fight them off rather than him going back to Madrid to be Mendy's backup. You could have gone and Arsenal went and got Gabriel. We don't know how good he is, but he certainly profiles well. He's the right age. He wasn't expensive. You could definitely.
Well, if United were on it and actually bang on it, they would have just straight away when the window opened paid Upamecano's buyout clause because it didn't. That didn't come out until the end of July, did it? When he signed that new deal.
But apparently, when Liverpool signed Minamino for 7.25, Man United didn't know about that clause.
Yeah, not many people did, though. I don't think.
But Man United should know. And in the Fergie years, you can't. I wouldn't believe that Manchester United wouldn't know, everything about the European landscape and where they can get extra value out of players.
But Andy Mitten wrote a really good article on Man United losing the dark arts of transfers, and I think that's really true. Back when Fergie and David Gill were in charge, I think he was a great example of Javier Hernandez. They used to have bets between each other, Alex Ferguson and David Gill, as to be able to sign a player without anybody in the media finding out. And they approached Javier Hernandez very on the quiet, and they said, if nobody finds out in the media and in your close circle other than your agent, we'll pay to play. Is it Guadalajara? I think he came from. We'll have a friendly, which basically would have funded their season. And he didn't even tell his own parents, Javier Hernandez. They thought he was in Chicago, and he flew over to Manchester to sign, and then was announced without anybody finding out. We've lost all of those
That's great, but you're not also
feelings.
worried about that, young players aren't buying into the sporting project at Manchester United as well. You have Bellingham, you have Haaland, having conversations with
This is a big problem.
going to Carrington, and choosing Dortment.
Haaland was a
that
massive miss.
5-10 years
Haaland
ago
was a massive miss, and the fact that we then replaced him, or we wanted to sign him and didn't sign him, so we got Igalo, kind of summarises where that's at, I think. The Jude Bellingham story, we put a lot of work into that transfer. We had Cantona going to see him, Ferguson went to see him, we had Scholes going to see him, Beckham ringing him up, and he still chose Dortmund. That is a big problem for me, I totally agree.
Yeah, and that's a huge kind of shift in the landscape, or at least the mentality of young footballers. I agree with those targets, and what I noticed when I was doing research last night is that a lot of Manchester United's rivals are also moving for centre-half targets in a meaningful way, and we all know it's really hard to evaluate centre-back talent, so a lot of them are going for kind of proven players but at a substantial cost. So Manchester United apparently bid 62 million for Jimenez from Atletico Madrid, massive fitness concerns.
I don't believe that.
Ended up signing Diaz, didn't they, from Benfica instead. Skriniar to Spurs, Fofana to Leicester. Does this worry you? And should Manchester United be in for similar players? Skriniar, Skriniar was great in a back four under Spalletti.
Skriniar's
not so much
the sort
in
of
the
player
three
Man
under
United
Conte.
need. United need a really super mobile centre-back.
Yeah, he's not
to partner Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire, good on the ball, and his biggest drawback, as everybody knows, is mobility. He is slow. So United needs somebody alongside him who's going to be extremely physical and carry the ball and is very, very mobile, which is why probably every Man United fan that's watching this at home is going, why don't we play Eric Bailly every week? Yeah. And nobody knows. Probably, definitely, in fact, better than Lindelof. And I don't understand why he doesn't play him. But his injury record is the main reason.
As good as Maguire on his day, Bailly.
So I think the reason United haven't gone for a centre-back this window is we missed the Upamecano clause. The Upamecano clause is 42 million euros next season. They're just going to hold for that.
Yeah, but do you not do the classic Bayern Munich mentality where we're not necessarily buying this player because we need him. We're buying him because to avoid him strengthening a rival.
But I don't think that
none of those players were fit.
I think Gabriel maybe. Gabriel seems to be a good pickup by Arsenal. But I don't. If United had spent 65 million on Ruben Diaz, I think everybody would have gone, that's an overpayment, big old overpayment for Man United. They're not too sure about that move. I think it would have been.
I think people are saying that about him now, though. Anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that was potentially the right signing for Manchester United. Ruben Diaz. I don't think Kalidou Koulibaly is ever going to be a realistic target for anyone. I think he's just always going to be priced out of a move by Napoli. Jimenez's injury record is way too bad for £130 million, whatever his buyout clause is that Atletico Madrid won. So United are just going to hold for Upamecano next summer. That's a risk, in my opinion, because other teams are going to come in for him next summer. So does the risk pay off? We won't know for another year, but I kind of understand the idea of not signing a centre-back in this window, given we've got 8 centre-backs in the first team squad at the moment.
I've got a really left field shout that I did promise the guys I'd bring to the table. I don't know if you might know him. Mohamed Samalkan from Strasbourg, 20-year-old, who a lot of big teams are sniffing around after
he's not going to start for United, is he?
Yeah, but it's worth, I think, Man United pursuing a £20 to £30 million defender in the hope that he becomes a significant upgrade on what they've got now.
That's what I'm saying. Is there any point? If United are going to go for Upamecano at 35 million next summer and get him,
that assumes you can get him. The concern is that if you're not in the Champions League next year because you didn't sign that player, maybe Sancho disappears for you because maybe another because Liverpool could easily sell one of their big 3 players next summer. They're all going to be 29 and go for somebody like that. City might.
I'm not saying it's right either. I'm saying that's probably what United are thinking. Do we need to spend 20 to 30 million pounds when we've got 8 centre backs on the books? And this lad's not going to start more than 10 games.
You can make that same argument about Donny van de Beek, I think. Donny van de Beek was not an unmissable opportunity.
But Donny van de Beek will start 30 games this season, probably, for United.
Well, maybe so, but I think that a defender who would start 30 games should have been a priority. I understand this idea of look, Upamecano is definitely the best young centre back kind of on the market, but Man United should have alternative options if that one doesn't come off. And where I feel that United have failed is not just in like big signings where they've overpaid, but it's also in these small role players who they don't get value out of. So like Liverpool, none of us think that Minamino is going to be like a regular starter for Liverpool really in the long term. He's not going to play like, or at least he's not going to start 30 games for them in a league campaign. But the fact that they can pick up these guys for 10 to kind of 15 mil, who they'll get some use out of,
and still turn profit on in 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's so important.
Yeah, I do. Look, I'm not arguing for the board here, but I'm saying is United have done that with Eric Bailly. They've done that with Victor Lindelof. They've bought Axel Tuanzebe back from loan, and they obviously have quite a lot of faith in that. And they haven't worked. So I do understand these ideas, but there is logic to a level, in my opinion, to the idea of not getting a centre-back this year if we can get Upamecano next year.
There's Mengi in the youth ranks as well, who's quite highly thought of.
Massively highly thought of, yeah.
So I'd like to see him come through, particularly if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a bastion of the Manchester United, way and progressing youth. But I mean, when you say you've got 8 centre-halves at the moment, I mean, you're trying to get rid of, if there was 8.
3 of them. 3 of them got to go.
Yeah, 3 or 4 of them.
Smalling, Rojo, Jones have probably got to go.
So I would say it'd be wise to dip your toe in the market for I mean, not necessarily Sam Alkin. He might not be of the calibre. I've not done kind of extensive scouting of his numbers, but he looks promising, and I feel like, you're losing ground to Liverpool, to Tottenham, even like, as a risk-taking club.
Yeah, I definitely agree, but I don't think centre-back is necessarily the key role in that loss of ground. I like
Van der Beek, by the way.
I think defensive midfield is a bigger hole in that squad potentially than central defence.
Yes.
I think if you can get Bailly and Maguire working together, you've actually got a passable centre-back partnership for a season. I do think that Pogba playing alongside Matic is like grating a little bit already, and we're only 3 games into the season. As soon as you see Pogba get into the final third, you're like, yes, Pogba in the final third. Like, that's where I want him to be playing. I don't want to see Pogba doing flicks and tricks 25 yards from his own goal, giving it away and the opposition scoring, which happens all the time. I want to see him doing flicks and tricks in and around the edge of the area, linking with Bruno, linking with Rashford. And because Matic is in there, Pogba has to drop in and be the mobile partner for him. And
who's the Matic replacement if he gets injured?
Probably Fred or Scott McTominay.
Fred, yeah.
But this is the thing. I feel like you have a version of like Wenger's problem in his last few years at Arsenal, which was Wenger was like, you have a lot more money. But Wenger's attitude was, if I can't get the player I want, I won't sign anyone. And United are a little bit like that as well, where I feel like if you don't get Sancho, that would just be it. Whereas I think the plan all along should have been like, we're going to try and get Sancho, and if we don't get him, we're going to take some bets on squad players. So we're going to do like 3 kind of 25 million pound bets.
This is what I was trying to articulate earlier.
Left backs, like defensive midfield, maybe a winger, like because. I understand your issue about Ismaila Sarr, but I think that if you're getting those, paying 40 mil to Watford is one thing. But like, if you're getting those guys for say 25 mil out of the French league, I think that you should say, we are a club who can afford to buy 20 to 23-year-olds for 25 mil. Let's get 3 of them, and if they don't work out, we'll just sell them on. Because Chelsea are in that position now. Like Chelsea are spending a lot of money, and partially it's because they didn't touch the Hazard money. But it's also because they went and bought people like Bakayoko when they were younger, and now they're going to be able to resell him for probably 25, 30 mil. It's a minor loss, but you've still got revenue.
And those players at the middling clubs are actually easier to get now, aren't they?
Yes.
Than your Jadon Sancho's out of super clubs like Dortmund. So they're even less of a risk now, which is kind of what is a little bit mind-boggling to me.
So overall, if we had to pick one player for each of those positions to fix Man United, right winger, centre back, left back, defensive midfield, who do we go for? Who do you go for?
So left back, I think Telles is probably your smartest option, and I would actually back United to wait that 3 months to sign him on a pre-contract, because I don't think that the upside to getting him now is massive in comparison to other positions.
Okay, so Telles, left back.
I'm not wild about Telles, but I think he's a bit too old.
He's at 27, right?
Yeah, he is. And
ancient.
And when you look at his creative numbers, though, they're like extreme. Like the reason people like him is only because it was great. And he's not going to take free kick and penalties. He takes penalties as well, and he's not going to take free kick and penalty duty off Fernandes. He just won't. I mean, he's a left footer, so that's helpful.
He might take the in-swingers, I suppose.
Sure, but I still think is this great value?
The thing I like about Luke Shaw is he can play left centre back in a back 3 as well. He's actually looked all right there. So Telles, if you did go to a back 3, Telles could could be a little bit more attack minded.
Well, I think this is what I think about the 3-5-2. Though I would probably drop Shaw and play Wan-Bissaka. Just because I think Wan-Bissaka, like that Palace game, Wan-Bissaka wasn't there.
Maguire,
maybe give United
Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, I think so. Or even Lindelof, you could protect a little bit more with Maguire, and also as we've seen, often clubs who have midfielders who are weak defensively can kind of get away with it a little bit more in a back three because there's just that extra defender, and if one of those is Wan-Bissaka, I think that's helpful.
All right.
But Tellers is fine.
Tellers,
he's cheap.
left back, I'll agree. Centre back, I still just think we should just wait for Upamecano next season. I think we should bet a little bit not getting him for the 60 million buyout clause this summer, but I don't think there is anybody else in the market this season that makes me think there would be an upgrade on buy if we signed him now.
I've only seen Fofana very fleetingly, but if Leicester are willing to put 35 million. I mean, that's a drop in the ocean to United. 19, like if you can move Smalling, if you can move, I'm not sure if his ceiling is like at this moment in time like significantly higher than Tuanzebe's, that you don't play Tuanzebe. But I'd certainly have a look at him.
Okay.
But yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult. But the worry is that other teams are strengthening in that area quite significantly, right? That are your Champions League rivals.
All right, defensive midfield, Pat. Any suggestions in that position?
I mean, that is a difficult one because they've got to be a Man United type. That's the problem. I mean, like in an ideal world, someone like Benacer would be fantastic for you. I don't know though.
Would you pay the big bucks and get Ndidi or not?
Probably not. He's out injured now anyway.
Yeah, that ship feels like it's sailed a little bit, doesn't it?
And I wouldn't leave Leicester for Man United right now. Like, I wouldn't. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think in the long term, like I would go to United, but right now, I'd stay at Leicester. So. Yeah. And I don't think that. I think the price will go up even more as well because he's deputised at centre back.
It's a difficult area to fill.
But yeah, someone like Benacer would be fantastic. Somebody who's great on the ball, is hyper mobile, and also does defend. Like the question is whether you're going to take a gamble for 25 mil or go and try and get the guy for 60 mil. If you're going to pay 60 mil, get Benacer. If you're going to pay 25 mil, just pull someone out of the French league.
Yeah. Okay. Any suggestions?
Or Locatelli or someone from Sassuolo would be great.
Yeah, like Leeds have signed what? Koch and Llorente for a combined 28 mil? No, maybe a little bit more. Koch was 11, I think Llorente probably like 20 odd, wasn't it? So 30 plus. So there's still value to be had. They're like international players, and Koch is like 24. That's just going back to centre halves. No, CDM, like as much as we've battered Man United's business, they're difficult pickups, aren't they?
And then we're all just agreeing they should have just paid, and hopefully they still do. It's probably collapsed by the time I'm saying that, so I'm just making myself into a meme. James Sancho should have just paid it and then get a director of football overall. So not much has changed from last season when we did the
same.
No,
but it's still interesting to keep updated, nonetheless.
Yeah. So if Man United have signed Jadon Sancho, and if Man United haven't signed Jadon Sancho, then you can bat on me right now in the comments. Let's just do a couple of quick fire questions because Pat has got to go in a minute. This one from Sebastian Eads. He says, could Aston Villa get solid mid-table with the signings they've made and a system that seems to work? They have made some alright signings. I think the best of the lot is just keeping Grealish, to be totally honest with you. But Ollie Watkins, fan of that, Pat? Slight overpayment?
I think it's definitely an overpayment, but he's definitely a good player. He's a good sort of age for them as well. Have they strengthened the deep midfield role though? Like that's
no. But Douglas Luiz towards the back end post lockdown was sensational for them, so maybe that's why they're thinking no.
Still quite bad defensively. Like I think they had a good start to the season defensively, but overall I still wouldn't entirely trust them. Like I think they'll probably be fine. I think there are definitely like 3 teams in the league worse than them. Probably 5.
Yeah.
And when you have the ability to score your way out of trouble, I think that's really what makes the difference in the lower half of the table. So I don't know. I think they'll be okay. I think mid-table,
15th to 10th for me.
Ceiling would probably be 12th, 13th. I think they'd take 15th right now.
Yeah, I think 15th to 10th.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Bertrand Traore's an alright signing, I think.
Yeah.
I know that George Yates have done a camera, but I think they've made some positive additions.
And I don't like Ross Barkley, but if Grealish got injured, like Ross Barkley is like your very cheap replacement version, right? Like they're not that dissimilar in some ways.
They've overpaid in the right areas. Yeah, I think they'll be fine.
Still could have done with another centre back, I think.
Yeah, definitely another centre back. Probably could have done with another DM.
But I think Martinez is a good little signing as well. So
yeah, Martinez is good, and if they can play Nakamba and Luiz, then that'll be right.
Okay, the next one from Shrithri Kothari, he says, like number 10s are almost obsolete now, which position do you think will be the next to become obsolete in the evolution of football?
Number 10 isn't obsolete. Like the press,
kind of coming back.
The press, like it's particularly Jurgen Klopp has kind of replaced number 10s, right? Like winning the ball high up the pitch. People they've changed their systems to enact that rather than relying on the genius of a number 10 to create high quality chances. It's kind of more about positional play, isn't it? And winning the ball in the right areas and people occupying the right spaces. But like if you can get a physical number 10, like a little bit like James Maddison will come deep. Like plays a little bit like an 8, but has the qualities of a 10, right? Like he comes
Bruno
deep,
does that as well.
Collects the ball. Yeah, Bruno Fernandes. Those players are becoming even more valuable than they once were. So I think it's just that the physical demands are higher on a 10. But if you can get players who can do both, they'll make your team tick.
Okay, the next one, Pato, is aimed just for you. I don't remember you saying this, but Don Coplione says, does PVS admit defeat in his argument that Mane is great but not one of the best players in the league?
I don't know if I said he wasn't one of the best players in the league.
I don't remember you saying that either, to be totally honest with you.
I might have said he wasn't one of the best players in the world. Like, that sounds like something I could have said. I still think that Liverpool fans, and to be honest, everyone has a tendency to slightly overrate Mane and slightly underrate Salah. I think that still goes on quite a bit. But to be honest, I suggested Mane as an Arsenal signing. You know, the summer we went for Jamie Vardy?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, if we want like a little fast 5'9" striker, like let's get Sadio Mane. And I didn't really mean it that seriously.
Like you did now.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. Like I'm a fan of Mane. What I object to is the fact that I think when you talk to a lot of people, they act as if like he is the key to Liverpool's attack, and I think Sadio Mane contributes to like 4.5 shots a game. Like once he takes and sets up. Firmino is slightly ahead of that. Salah is on 6.
Yeah.
To me, that's the difference.
All right, okay. One more. Rahuja Tanish says, out of the top 6, which manager will be sacked first?
I'd be kind of would you not be
at this point in the season?
Do you not think
3 games
Pochettino might be United manager by the end of the season?
No.
I would Pep. I'd love it. Okay, Pep, not Guardiola.
Mourinho.
Not Pep, not Guardiola.
I actually don't think a single one of the big 6 managers will get sacked this season.
Well, somebody might leave.
I think it's close to impossible, because I think Lampard could have a really poor season, keep his job. I think Ollie could have a really poor season, keep his job. Pep's going nowhere. Klopp's going nowhere. Arteta could have a poor season, keep his job, and Jose will just bumble along because he's got so much. He's on too many wages.
Yeah. I think it's to slightly like pivot it. Who might be replaced at the end of next season is probably a more feasible question, because I think like Lampard, if he doesn't do bits with this Chelsea squad, having spent 200 million plus, they might. I don't think they'd sack him during the season.
Don't really see him going anywhere, man.
But
I think the squad
his position might be under consideration.
I think the squad will paper over. I think he might do a really bad job this season, and they'll still finish 3rd because the squad's just so good.
Well, they got 66 points last year and managed to finish 4th, right? If they get 66 points again this year, they could still finish 6th.
I don't think they will, though.
I don't know. It could be another.
Too much
it could be another terrible top 4 race. You never know. Right, let's do one personal question then Pato's out of here. Sebastian Eads. I think we've already had one question from him, so a second one says, personal question, what would you have done different in lockdown with what you know now? So a hindsight question. I would have eaten better probably. I did eat like a bit of like slob in lockdown, you know, just like lots of sort of like takeaways and stuff towards the back end, and just not particularly good stuff.
I'd gone for probably like maybe made sure to go for like 1 walk a day, like even if it was on top of a run as well, just to like clear your head, help process things. I think that's very helpful when you're working from home, just to make sure you're in a different environment, and it just helps your head problem solve a little bit.
Pato?
I probably bought more weights at the beginning before the prices went insane.
Of course you did, but
that is a good idea though.
Like I've got enough weights and like resistance bands and stuff, but it's annoying. Maybe I'd have bought something like fun just to make. The thing is, I diet during the week. It's boring. But maybe I'd have I could have either dieted through the weekend as well, so that my diet would have been done. I'd have reached a point, and then I could have put my calories back, or I'd have just done something mental, like bought an ice cream maker or something that would have just been fun for us, like during the summer. I don't fucking know. There's no good way to get through lockdown. You just get through it however you can.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sunday Vibes, back in the pub, episode 1, tick. Remember to hit the link in the description below if you want to go and check out Kings of the Premier League. Anything else to plug today? Got a one-on-one?
Yes, hopefully. No, that's next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
All over the place. That'll be a top 10. You go and check out what's top 10 on Saturday on Football Daily yesterday. Throw me under the bus a little bit here.
Mate,
podcasts, all sorts. Pat, take over.
Oh yeah, the latest podcast was actually me and Joe, where we were talking about the big sides and how most of them have started the season badly, and how worried we are on a scale of 1 to 10 about each one, given some of the horrific results that have gone on.
The one before that absolutely popped.
I don't even remember what it was.
I don't know, but it did over 100,000 views.
Yeah.
So go and subscribe to the Football Daily podcast channel. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.